Hi everyone, welcome to today's Tuesday Rapid Fire. Trading Views back up online. Thank you for your patience. We got there in the end. Black Friday sales, happy days. Don't know why they cancelled my subscription, but there you go. So we're back in the markets today. And like we were forecasting last week, guys, we're just advising a little bit of patience, managing risk. We didn't quite like what we were seeing at those highs there, the exuberance, the FOMO, the meme coin mania. It does appear to be playing out now where meme coins, some of them are down 20, 30%, perhaps more. And the market was just contracting a little bit into the security and safety of US dollars and Bitcoin. But that said, we are now seeing a rotation from Bitcoin dominance. So we're seeing a lot of the liquidity move from Bitcoin and now speculating in some altcoins and also Ethereum, which we'll get into a little bit later. So I'm really watching for the Bitcoin pairs, that relative strength, seeing where that's popping. And it's a very interesting dynamic because Bitcoin dominance looked indomitable. It didn't look like it was going to slow down, but it does look like it has found a little bit of a ceiling here, and it's following traditional crypto dynamics where we see Bitcoin hit a roof, we fall a little bit, we range around, and altcoins find that fertile ground for a really nice little patch. So be watching those charts. Now let's have a look at Bitcoin ETF flows here. These inflows have been phenomenal this last week, and we haven't been able to breach 100K. I'm not sort of saying that's a negative or anything like that. These inflows are just phenomenal, and you hope they continue. Same with MicroStrategy. I think Michael Saylor bought another 50,000 Bitcoin off the open market. Now, generally when he announces he's done the buys, it generally can indicate a little bit of a local top as well. So another little thought bubble there that's happening. But when you think about it, if someone like Michael Saylor and all these ETFs are just buying hard and Saylor's just accumulating behind the scenes, you'll see that on the exchanges. You'll see the premium by Coinbase and others that someone's buying a lot of spot here and it's pushing up that premium on the spot price. Once he's done buying, well, you can see the movement up in the market as we're approaching that 100K. It's just relentless. And then it's just petered out a little bit, starting to fall away. So if my concern here is if these buyers just weaken a little bit and wean off, we're likely going to get that deeper correction that we're hoping for. Now, that said, I think we're in a prime area of the bull market where we're about to have that explosion up into those crazy astronomical figures and the crazy bull market that we all want. But it's important here, and I've just said to the masterminds in the session just before, it's important here to be patient and let the market come to you. If you're just a longer term investor and you're just accumulating on a hold, you don't care about the short term volatility, that's fine. But if you're looking to add to positions, you want to be monitoring the Bitcoin pair charts, you want to be seeing what other cryptos are, how they're behaving. And when we're seeing those resistance flip supports, that's when you want to get aggressive versus continuously catching falling knives to the downside. And if Bitcoin has a larger correction here, then altcoins are going to drop, you'd think, reasonably hard. But I think this is that last sort of little dip that we're going to see before we do see that up move in alt. So that's where I'm sitting. I would expect altcoins to really steal the show for a little bit here at some point, just based on what I'm seeing in Bitcoin dominance, which is falling down. USDT is having a little bit of rally, but I would expect that to continue the trend to the downside. Total 3 looks really strong. It's having a real big up move. So a lot of things pointing to altcoins potentially holding a lot of that strength, even as Bitcoin falls. It's very typical. If Ethereum is robust and it's holding levels and it's gaining against Bitcoin in this type of environment, then altcoins should feel reasonably buoyed by that stability in the altcoin leader. So that is a very interesting dynamic to watch. MicroStrategy as well, as I was talking about Michael Saylor just before, is about 360% up since the low here. So we're reaching a bit of a point when we're heading into 100K, that exuberance, that FOMO. MicroStrategy is this fly rule at the moment. The higher the stock goes, the more debt Michael Saylor can release it. He borrows at 0%, releases the debt. People buy it up, getting exposure to Bitcoin. The higher the MicroStrategy price goes, the higher the price of Bitcoin goes. It's this reflexive loop, and it's going to keep going, I think, until reaches a point they can't go anymore. But a lot of these funds and institutions and large investors that don't want to buy physical Bitcoin but want exposure via a debt instrument, and which MicroStrategy provides, gives them the cover that they can buy that debt and have exposure to Bitcoin, because they don't have to write that Bitcoin down according to that FASB accounting rule where, Bitcoin's volatile and have unrealized losses. They have to record that at the financial year or when they're doing their accounting, and it's not great. But with debt, they can just own it and get exposure to Bitcoin that way. So happy days. But yes, funny how it sort of coincides with Bitcoin moving to 100K and now this. So we're going to have a look here. This was worthy of note. So this is Checkmate. Just looking here. I don't know if I mentioned, but we did a webinar of Checkmate recently. It's an absolute banger. He has some very interesting things to say about Ethereum, so stay tuned for that. But he pointed out that long-term holders really aren't pulling their weight in terms of this new upthrust of money coming in. They're actually selling a lot. They distributed $60 billion worth of supply in the last 30 days. Out of all the long-term holder supply moves since the FTX bottom, 21% of it has happened in November. So we're at a real peak state of sellout. People see 100,000 as that, psychological resistance level where it's good to maybe take some chips off the table. And we're going to see how that plays out, because I think a lot of these coins moving from long-term holders are moving into the hands of the institutions like the BlackRocks of the world and whatnot. They're accumulating it at a rapid clip. So it's going to get eaten up, the 100K level. It's just a matter of when. We're kind of banking on it there being a slight correction here under 100K, back down to maybe low 80s or mid 80s, which would be an absolute gift. Bitcoin volatility, I think, should be relatively low up here, but altcoins will kind of feel a lot more of that slingshot, as they often do. Joke and sortie, this is what's giving me a little bit of pause over the next few months, that we might see a correction of some kind at some point. So Bitcoin has dislocated from the money stock numerous times, namely from 22-23 due to FTX collapse and interest in this space evaporating as a result. So if you hear me talk about Bitcoin and crypto ad nauseum in our webinars, I do say that this market is not really driven on you can say 4-year cycles and all that jazz, but what it really at the end of the day, what really pushes it higher is liquidity and expanding the monetary supply. That's what M2 is. It's the monetary units in the system. Now, global M2 has been ripping. So we did share this chart a little while ago where M2, the white line, was absolutely going to the moon, while Bitcoin was just chopping and consolidating downwards in that 70,000 range. It lags, and it was going to catch up to the M2 expansion at some point. It has. M2 is now contracting. It's getting a little bit tighter. We can definitely see that there. So Bitcoin is likely to follow that at some point, unless M2 does its thing, or we have, and he points out here that it could buck the trend, but I'm fairly confident that it's going to follow that trend, even though we've got ETFs and all this jazz. If M2 is contracting, then it probably means that we could see a bit of a surprise in December, which I'm a bit of a fan of, that the Fed is going to keep rates on hold. There is currently no chance of them raising rates, but I think if they keep things on hold, that will likely signal a contraction of liquidity, or at least just the market going, all right, this is interesting, because bond yields and the dollar are all telling us that they've tightened too hard too soon, and inflation isn't going away, and we're seeing the Trump tariffs and different things. There's a lot of concern around the inflation around that in the short term. So this could put the willies up the stock market and see a contraction of liquidity. So something I'm paying attention to very, very keenly. I'm just on edge at a certain point, and I think, if we do crack 100K, I think 110, 120 is probably our limit before we have that contraction. Maybe use 100K as the floor. Just trying to think out loud here. What altcoins do in that period, I don't know, but we're going to get a lot of smash and grabs. We're going to have a lot of pumps and then dumps, but hopefully the floors on those are going to be higher. And for savvy traders and investors, you're going to make a lot of money. All right, all eyes on Ethereum here. At some point, you're going to be wrong about Ethereum and it's going to move higher. The USD chart looks really, really nice. It's made this big bowl, so this cup and handle, it's climbing out higher. It's right in that zone here where I would totally expect this to be above 4,000 over the next few weeks. So it looks really, really nice. Everything on this chart is pointing north. That said, doesn't mean you necessarily have to buy Ethereum. If you're in Solana, if you're in Sui, if you're in anything else and you're benchmarking against Ethereum, those cryptos might still rise in value relative to Ethereum moving higher, and may even outperform Ethereum. So while Ethereum could outperform in the short term, you still might be better off elsewhere. So it's something to think of. Make sure you're benchmarking it against the pairs, like FBTC here for an example. Starting to look okay, but it's kind of looked okay every time it has done a pump previously, and I wouldn't lose your hat over it. You have alerts set above, if it starts to create, I want to see a the first kind of higher high setup. It's really disappointing what SBTC has done, but if we zoom out, we're getting to the pointy end of where ETH typically runs every single cycle. So the clock is ticking on this. If Ethereum wants to go, it should do it soon. If it doesn't, then we know it's pretty much dead. And it will have a pump eventually, but it's very hard to pick the rotation. But if we go back here, December 2020, before the bull market here, Ethereum, big move up, 60% pullback, then off to the races, maybe all-time high, then contracted. So this level in between is very well respected. If we have a look at the monthly as well, we're essentially the lowest we've ever been on the monthly chart on the RSI. So breaching oversold on the monthly is usually a pretty good spot to get interested. Now let's go to Bitcoin here. Very, very simple analysis. Overlaid the Fibonacci retrace. We've got 100K as the mid above. Super, super easy. Get aggressive level if we close above and we move higher. But right now and this morning, what I didn't like was we closed really full body red candle beneath the 10 daily EMA. So I think we could actually start to use that as resistance for a larger correction, maybe into a wedge, maybe into a range. If we can kind of maintain above that 90,000 and not go too much below this 20 SMA at 89, 90,000, then we will be range bound. And I think some altcoins, like I'm just looking down my list, Stacks BTC has been doing really, really well of late because of an upgrade coming soon. If you're looking at your charts and seeing any of the BTC pairs really outperforming, pay attention to them. Some of them have, and today they're kind of slackening off a little bit, but that's what I keep an eye on. And with altcoins, maintain your vigilance, still manage risk. Don't go too hard too soon. Just be patient. Have orders. I know personally with my SUI positioning, I went into Bitcoin at about 100 or 99K on my SUI position, and then have been just had orders set against Bitcoin lower and lower. I've got more orders set below, which could correspond to SUI $3 or sub $3, which I'm happy with. But if any of those hit, I'll be ecstatic. I can just close the laptop, go away, and then really reap rewards on that. So yeah, that's where I see the market, guys. Very interesting spot. But if you're getting bearish here at 94,000, just down from 100, then you might need to just zoom out a little bit. But broadly, I think we're really well positioned, monthly, weekly, all in the power zone for the RSI. Things looking really, really nice. Bit a longer episode for you today as well. Wanted to just give you a little bit more value. So guys, have a wonderful day. Catch you again soon. Bye-bye.